Right. We're learning and we're continuing the speech that Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in, I guess it was the beginning of 1992 or the very end of 1991, Tafshin Nun Beit, and it's talking about the advantage of Yehuda over Yosef and how we can, they say, explain how we can explain the this week's Torah portion, how this week's Torah portion is represented by this week's Haftorah. Usually the Haftorah of every week, which comes usually from the prophets or from the writings, is usually on the same topic as the Torah portion. And this week's Torah portion seems to be the opposite of the Haftorah. This week's Torah portion is talking about how Yosef is the king. And Vayigash means that Yehuda has to come and approach Yosef. He has to come and, they say, break in to Yosef's the royalty, is to come supplicate and to break in and brazenly approach Yosef. But in any case, Yehuda is a nobody, and Yosef is an everybody. Yosef rules over the whole world, and Yehuda doesn't even rule over himself. Right? They're all starving. The world is starving, and he and his brothers are all under the control of Yosef. So this week's Torah portion is talking about that Yosef is the big one, and Yehuda is the small one. The Haftorah is exactly the opposite. The Haftorah says in the future that Yehuda is going to be the main thing. Yehuda is going to be the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to come from David, and Yosef will be under him. So Yehuda is the main thing. So how could it be it's exactly the opposite. The Haftorah is the opposite message of this week's Torah portion. So it says, how is it really the same? It's because the fact of the matter is Yehuda is going to be Mashiach. And we can see it from this week's Torah portion when Yehuda is nobody and Yosef, he's the king. Why? Because Yehuda is expressing assertiveness, even though you're nothing. If being assertive, being brave, when you have no backing, no reason. All you've got is just assertiveness. I guess you can call it chutzpah if you want to. Yehuda approached Yosef. He had no friends. He had no helpers. He had no army. He had no standing. He had no reputation. He had nothing whatsoever. All he had is he wanted his brother back. Yosef took his brother Benjamin he wanted his brother back. That's all. And Vayigash, without permission, he approached Yosef. In other words, Yehuda was not intimidated or even affected at all by his surroundings. The only motivation he had was truth. He wanted his brother back. He didn't think about politics, and he didn't think about world peer pressure or about public opinion or about what the future was going to bring or what his actions would. He wanted one thing, truth. That's what he wanted. He wasn't thinking about any of the results. The results are up to God. The actions are up to me. And that's what's going to bring Mashiach. That's what's going to bring Mashiach. So therefore, the fact that Yehuda didn't have anything and Yosef had everything, that's exactly the point. Yehuda, despite the fact that he had nothing and Yosef was everything, he put all of that aside. He was only interested in one thing and motivated by one thing, and that is the truth. He wanted his brother back. And he didn't care if he lost everything, if he lost his life, if he lost everything. He wasn't going to make any deals. He wasn't going to make any compromises. Right? He wanted his brother back. And that's the aspect of Mashiach, that all you care about is the truth. And you're willing to lose everything. Okay. So we can see a case of this in we can see a case of this in Purim. Purim, a very interesting thing happened in Purim. It says that Achashverosh made a big meal. That's in the beginning. And he invited everybody. And it said he wanted to please everybody. Kiratzon ish ve'ish. Kiratzon ish ve'ish. That he would fill the desire of each and every person. Says the Midrash, he wanted to please Haman and Mordechai. There's two explanations of this. That the king was a fool. You can't please Mordechai and Haman. Haman wanted to destroy Mordechai. Mordechai wanted that there shouldn't be any Haman. Haman was a force of pure evil. He wanted to kill all the Jews. Mordechai was a force of pure good. He just wanted that the world should be a good place. Right? He wanted that God should rule the world. And Haman wanted that he should rule the world. And he wanted to get rid of Mordechai. So how could you have both of them? You can't please both of them. Right? I'll give you what you want. What do you want? I want that only God should rule and you shouldn't listen to Haman. Okay, your wish is my command. Your wishes are filled. Okay, Haman, what do you want? Says, I want that you should kill Mordechai and destroy all the Jews. Your wishes are filled. So 1 second, you can't do both. How can you do both? You just said he's going to do the way Mordechai wants, and I did. So it was. And now you said you're going to do what Haman wants, which is the opposite. I also did. So he says, the king is a nut. The king is crazy. He can't do that. He can't do that. One opinion. The other opinion is Kiratzon ish v'ish, that Achashverosh here is talking about God. That in the Megillah, God's name is not mentioned, but Achashverosh is a metaphor, what do you call it? Something for God. It means God. And that Mordechai can't do it, but God can do it. God can make it, both of them together. Okay, so the Rebbe said, how does that work out? I mean, I'm sorry, the king, Achashverosh can't do it. Achashverosh can't do it, but God can do it. God can do it. Okay, so the Rebbe says, okay, so now the question is on God. How can God do it? How can God make it that both Mordechai and Haman get what they want? Okay, so the Rebbe says like this. Habir, the explanation in the inside is like this. Achashverosh in its source is referring to God. Like the rabbis say, every time it says in Achashverosh in the Megillah is talking about God because God is called Achash. Achar is from the letters Achar, the end, Barosh is the beginning. That the end and the beginning are his. This refers to God. That he makes the world, and because God makes the world, is God, he's the one that creates Haman also. The choice of man to, I said, Bechiroto shaladam, therefore, God made a world that every person can choose to do whatever he wants. A person can act like Mordechai, or he can act like Haman. Reshut l'kol adam netuna, there is permission given to every person. If he wants to incline himself to do good and to be a tzaddik, he can do it. And if he wants to be like bad, like Haman, he can do it. Oh, so that's what it means. That God said, I'm going to do everybody's will. What does it mean, everybody's will? Everybody's will means you have free choice. You have free choice. You want to go against me? You can do it. I'm doing karatzon ish v'ish. I'm giving everybody the ratzon, the ability, the desire that he can do whatever he wants. This is only talking about what everybody can choose. Two desires which are opposite. A person can choose whichever he wants to, which is not the case. So to actually do. And it doesn't say in the Megillah that you can choose whichever one you want to. It says that you can do both together. You can't have both Mordechai's world and Haman's world together. The desire of Mordechai is holy, and the desire of Haman is exactly the opposite. So therefore, it can't possibly be that both of them be together even by God. or the world has to go according to Mordechai's way, or it goes according to Haman's way. You can't have both. Even God can't make them both. You have to choose one way or the other. But Omik Yoter, in a deeper way, Stira, the contradiction. The contradiction. Lasot Kirason Ish V'ish, that both the wills of both Mordechai and Haman can be fulfilled. This is not just because that, in fact, it's impossible to do these two desires together, but even more, Ratzon Mordechai v'Haman, the desire of each one. These are two totally opposite ways. Shekol achad shola lagamri l'chiora et hasheni. Each one is the total opposite of the other one. What do we say? First of all, we had an answer. The answer is that God gives free will. You can choose whichever you want to. It says, okay, but that's not what it says in the Midrash. In the Midrash, it says that to actually do both of them. The world can actually be conducted according to Mordechai and Haman at the same time. I say, how can it possibly be? Mordechai wants a world without any Haman. Haman wants a world that there shouldn't be any Mordechais in it. That's what he wants. That's ideally. So how can you possibly have both of them together? The desire of Mordechai is that he wouldn't even bow down, he wouldn't even bend his knee to Haman. Like the rabbis say, Al-Masha Mordechai Nikra, that's why Mordechai is called a Jew, Yehudi. Why is Mordechai called a Jew, a Yehudi? Because Hashem shekafar b'avodah zarah. He denied, one second, I just want to see something. That, excuse me one second. I can't get this. Okay. Because he denied idolatry. Yehudi is a person that he denies, he opposes idolatry. Now, any person who opposes and totally denies idolatry is called a Jew, Yehudi. The Rebbe is going to explain that idolatry doesn't only mean bowing down to idols. We'll see. Look, and therefore, every single Jew is called a Yehudi. Why? Because the essence of Jewish, Yahadut, Judaism is expressed in the fact that he will not bow down to idolatry. He won't even bend his knee to idolatry. What does that mean? It's known that this idea of idolatry, avodah zorah, of the word avodah zorah means idolatry. It's translated, but really the two words mean avodah, service, zara, that's strange. Because who are you serving? Who are you serving? Avodah Zorah doesn't necessarily mean bowing down to a golden calf or a statue or a cross or something. That's also idolatry, but it's much more subtle than that. Elakol davar, that anything which is not attached to avadat et Hashem Elokecha, serving God directly, afilu im ze eino hipach v'shulchan aruch, even if it's not the opposite of the Shulchan Aruch, this is called idolatry. Let's get something straight. What is pure idolatry? What's pure idolatry? Pure idolatry means he sets up a statue and he says, this statue is God. And he bows down to the statue. Okay, I mean, that's insane. Nobody thinks the statue is God. But what do they think? That God works through the statue. God is God, but then the statue is also worth bowing down to. You pray to the statue. It's like in a government, right? You don't go to the president of the United States if you want the streets swept, right? You want the lights in front of your house to be fixed up. You go to the mayor, and the mayor doesn't even talk to you either. He says you go to the person who's in charge of maintenance. The person who's in charge of maintenance, he also assigns to you somebody to do. The same thing is with God, right? You don't go to God if you want your somebody to get better, right? He says, right, you do. God is not like the president. He's not like the mayor. God personally answers all of your problems. Personally, he can do it through a doctor. He can do it through something. He can do it, but don't think that the doctor is the one that's healing you or that the person is healing you. It's just the means by which. So you want to pray to God, there's only one God. And God answers you. He answers you in natural ways. There's only one God. Idolatry is when you say that there's something in between me and God, and I pray to this person. I pray to this person. You can ask people for help. You You're going to ask a doctor for help. You're going to ask a tzaddik for help. You're going to ask your next door neighbor to pray for you. One person can pray for another person. It's a very good thing. You should pray, but you're praying to God. That's the point. You can ask somebody, but you're not praying to that person. That's pure idolatry. Okay, now what's wrong with that? What's wrong with at least he's praying to something. What's wrong with idolatry? Says God doesn't want it. Why doesn't God? Because it's false. It's false. You're giving credit where credit is not due. The doctor is not healing you. God is healing you. Afterwards, you can say thank you to the doctor for putting such effort in and for thank you for your care, because the doctor has free will. The doctor can help you or not. So they say thank you. Thank you is very good. Gratitude is a good thing. But you have to realize that everything is, you're not praying to the doctor. The doctor is not God, or he's not a form of God. He's just a form of nature that God works through nature. But says, but idolatry is the thinking that actually, if you want to, let's say the doctor, he's the one that heals you. Or you pray to the God of doctors. You pray to the God of healing. Like the Greeks, they had all these different gods, the God of healing, the God of love, the God of this, that. That's called idolatry. These things are not God. The same thing is also in the world when a person thinks that I earned my money. When a person says, God says this, but I want this, that's called idolatry. It's a very fine level of idolatry. It's not idolatry that's punishable in the Torah. It's not the type of idolatry that the Torah says is God hates, but nevertheless it's idolatry, and God does hate it. And this is avodah zarah. This is called strange service which is strange to him. On Purim, the Jewish people refused to bow down to Haman. They refused to bow down to Haman. Excuse me. Because that would be service which is strange to a Jew. Strange service to a Jew. The same thing we're going to say, that was the power from Yehuda. Yehuda refused to be intimidated or affected by any power of nature. Not even Yosef, his brother, he was only interested in one thing, in the truth. That's what he wanted, the truth. That's called true service of God. Anything when a person is willing to make a deal with it, that's already called, in a very fine, delicate way, it's called avodah zarah. It's called idolatry. Even since shekol inyanim shel Yehudi, that everything of a Jew has to be only to do the will of your Father in heaven. And eventually the whole world will be like this. Like the rabbis say, ani lo nivres, it's the end of the Mishnayos in Kedushin. I was not created except to serve my owner, my creator. Because because I am being created every instant. Shall kiyum adam ba'olam hazeh. Every instant that I am alive, it's a big miracle. God is creating me. So, and the only reason that God is creating me every single instant, so it's understood. So call prat shel avodah, so every detail of my life, how I brush my teeth, how I wake up in the morning, how I put on my shoes, everything is a big miracle. God is creating everything. Therefore, why is he creating everything? He's creating everything, liot l'shamish et koni, in order to serve my owner, God. Ketzivu Torah, like the Torah says, kol ma'asecha yeh l'shem shemayim. All of your deeds should be for the name of heaven. Ubechol dorechecha do'eu, and in all of your ways you should know God. Call everything, all of your ways, all of your deeds. In other words, God is not just outside of the world, or he created the world thousands of years ago, or billions of years ago, or trillions of years ago, or even 5 minutes ago. God is creating everything right now. Me and you, and everything is being created for a purpose. Right? Those people say that there is no God. So in a way, it's sort of an easy way out. An easy way out. Why? Because you say, well, if God, I'm not being created by God. I'm just sort of here by natural processes. So there's no reason why I'm here. I have no obligation to anyone. I have no responsibility to anyone except for myself. I can do what I want to, right? I'm the boss. I'm God. I'm God. Says, well, you can certainly say that, but that means that you're making the world into God, right? You want somebody to come in and steal your money? No, 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 no. So then you're afraid not of God. You're afraid of yourself. You don't want to lose. You don't want to lose. You're afraid of thieves. You're afraid of whatever. So it ends up that because if you think you're not being created, and there's no reason why you're here whatsoever, which is okay. You can think that way. That certainly God created the world. That is certainly a viable choice. It's certainly it's a viable option that you can think that way. But if you do think that way, then you're missing out on a very, very wonderful thing, and that's called responsibility. You're not responsibility. Your existence has no responsibility. You're not. It has no, I say, purpose. And it says the Rebbe, here's a purpose that God is giving us, not just in our life in general, but in every single instant, because God is creating us every instant, everything. Lo rak, not only all of your deeds, all of kol maisim, not only all of your deeds, and lagam shekol maisa, every deed in itself should be totally for the sake of heaven. Not just that you put on your shoes for the sake of heaven, but actually every deed, how you tie your laces. Okay, now you can't go too crazy about this thing, because the idea of that God is creating everything is not supposed to make you live in this little sort of religious, cave or something that you live in. I'm just doing everything the way God wants. You got to watch out because, step on a crack, you break your mother's back. We used to say when we were kids. This is in a wide way. It's not that God, if you don't do what God wants, that's not what he's saying. God creates you unconditionally. He'll create you even if you don't go totally against him. God forbid. And we see that's what happens. There's a world of 8 billion people, right? Who's doing exactly what God wants all the time, right? I don't know if I'm doing what God wants all the time. In fact, I'm sure that I'm not, right? Every single instant. But God creates unconditionally. And that's the whole thing. God is creating me unconditionally. So, he's giving me everything for free. Maybe I should do something for him for free. Maybe I should do a little bit more for free. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. Listen, if you're really serious about paying God back, right? You don't have to pay him back if you don't want to. But if you're really a person with integrity and you really want to pay him back, then you're in for a really very interesting life, because you're attached to the creator of the universe. And you can attach to him every single instant in everything that you do. So it doesn't mean you have to tie your shoes differently and that you have to do this. Even though it says when you tie your shoes, you're supposed to put on the right shoe first, but tie the left shoe first. But that's, I guess, only for Jews. In any case, we're talking about here Jews mainly. Because everything that you do, you have to realize that you have to do it with respect. When you talk to somebody in the street, it has to be respect. Don't think that you're the boss. Shari, and that makes you also happy, because you're living in God's world, and God is taking care of us. He's creating us for free, even if we do all sorts of sins. Everything He's creating us, so that makes you feel happy. Listen, God loves me. He cares about me. He's creating me. He provides for me, keeping me alive. My blood is circulating and my lungs are working. Shahari im yeshnu davar nosef. If there's something outside of this, that God is creating everything. So if you think there's something outside of that, that's called idolatry. That's something outside of the creator. And there can't be anything else. This is the opposite of why it was created. And on this completion, it says that everything should be not just for the sake of heaven, but it should be that your deeds themselves and the ways and everything you do, you should know God. Essentially, what this means is to be very happy. You should be very grateful every moment that I'm alive, and to understand how rich we are, how wealthy we are, and that we can smile at somebody, can say good morning to somebody. And there's people who go through life and that they're miserable all the time. There's people like that. There's people that are miserable, they're always sick, and they're always complaining, and they're always miserable, and everything is bad, and nothing is good, and everything bothers them, and they're against this, and it's the problem of the government, and the this and that. even more, that Shemayim, heavens themselves, the heavens themselves, no, sorry, not only should be for the sake of heaven, but everything should be heavenly. Heavenly. Like eating and drinking of Shabbat, like on Shabbat, itself becomes a commandment. That's the pleasure of Shabbat. So everything you do with, how do you say, with a liveliness, with an appreciation. There's also a big thing. I just heard Rabbi Paltiel speaking. He's very excellent. I would advise everybody to listen to what he says. He's really excellent. And he says there's some people that get a tremendous pleasure out of making other people scared by scaring you. Right? By scaring you. The corona is going to come and there's going to be global warming is going to come. He didn't see these things. Now they have the big thing that Arabs are going to kill us. The Arabs are everywhere in the universities. That you got to get out. You have to come to Israel. You have to worry. You have to worry about this. You have to worry about that. And you don't know what's going to be tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be the Holocaust. You have to worry. So first of all, number one, I mean, let's just take a basic thing about this. You know, how much can we let the world rule over us? The Baal Shem Tov, his father, told him, in his dying words on his bed, don't be afraid of anything except for God. And it was before you afraid of something, check it out 10 times, 15 times, 100 times. If it's really, should you really wear a mask? I mean, the masks really helped in the corona. You really should take a shot that really helps. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out to see. Should you really move to Eretz Yisrael because you're afraid? Is it really that bad in these places? I mean, the fact of the matter is, I've said this a lot of times before, the worst place for a Jew to live, the most dangerous place for a Jew to live, according to, natural way of looking at things, is Israel. There's no place in the world where they shoot rockets at Jews. We've had it in Israel the last, year, since October 7th, they shot 26,000 missiles at us. In New York, you ever get a missile shot at you? And you're in Paris, you ever get someone shot a missile at you? They write in the newspaper, okay, that there's crime 100%, and the Arabs are crying and they're going to kill all the Jews and everything like that. But don't be afraid. The Rebbe said there's not going to be another Holocaust. There won't be another one. The Rebbe said it could happen tomorrow, but it's not going to happen. The same thing in Israel, right? The whole country is open. Look what happened on October the 7th. There was no army. There was no police. There was no nothing. There's a lot of theories which are very acceptable. Somehow or the government wanted it to happen. There's no other explanation. No other explanation. How could it be that they broke in, that they were killing people for 6 hours and the army didn't come? 8 hours. The army wasn't called, not even one helicopter. It doesn't make any sense. Israel is the most dangerous place in the world, according to normal thought, normal facts. The most dangerous place for a Jew to live is in Israel. It happens to be that God watches over us and he protects us. And so the Lubavitcher Rebbe, if you listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he says that Israel is the safest place for a Jew to live. That's what he said. Israel is the safest place. But that's according to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but not according to statistics. Statistics, there is nowhere in the world. You get bombs shot at you every day. Yesterday, what was yesterday night? Yesterday night, we had another sirens. Sirens that everybody runs to bomb shelters. I do not go to bomb shelters. The Rebbe says Israel is the safest place in the world. The Rebbe said Kfar Chabad is the most safe place in Israel. And that must mean something. It must be something, right? So I'm not running to bomb shelters, but according to logic, makes no sense. You have to pack a gun over here, right? You live in the north and the south, whatever. You better walk around with a gun. People walking around the streets with fully automatic weapons. You don't have that in New Jersey, in whatever it is, in Munich, in Germany. Okay, so going back, are we going to let the world affect us? And it says exactly the opposite. We have to affect the world. We have to realize that God is caring about us and that God protects us. And to be afraid for sure is no place in it. You can't, not to be stupid. We're not talking about driving on the wrong side of the road. But on the other hand, okay, we're going to talk about driving on the road in a minute. We'll talk about that. Everything that we do, we have to realize is a miracle. And every moment of our lives is a miracle. And every single breath we take and every heartbeat that we have and every step and everything, et cetera, it's all miracles, and that we should do it in a happy way, in a flowing way. not to be anticipating what's going to be in the next moment, and not to be nervous, and not to be this. God is taking care of it, and I'm trying to make the world a better world according to what God was. And that could be even when I eat my meal, when I do. And this is what Mordechai said. When Mordechai didn't bow down, he didn't bow down to anything in the world, not even to things that are permissible according to the Shulchan Aruch, right? To run into the bomb shelter. Mordechai, here, Haman ruled over the whole world. He was going to kill everybody, and Mordechai didn't bow down to him. Bow down. Come on, what's wrong with you? No. Because everything that he saw in the world, she'einu avoda, which is not coming directly to serve God, this is called avodah zarah. This is a service which is strange to him, and that's why he's called a Jew. That's the essence of what a Jew is. It's not just the thing with the big tzaddik. That's the essence of what a Jew is. On the other hand, what does Haman want? Haman is avodah zarah. Not really idolatry, but Haman wanted that he should do, that the Jews should just serve in a way that's strange to a Jew. You want to do Torah, do mitzvahs, put on the tefillin, learn, but just bow down to Haman once in a while. Everybody bow down to Haman. How long does it take to bow down to Haman? 5 seconds. No big deal. Even since she'einu avodas Hashem, because that 5 seconds is not serving God. So Haman says, because you're found in the world, and because you Jewish people are in exile, you have to realize that now you're under nature anymore. You're not God's people anymore. You're not under now, therefore, you are under the laws and the principles of nature. And who created nature? God created nature. Who made Haman great? God did. Nothing happens outside of God. Who made Achashverosh the king? God did. And therefore, said Haman, you have to wake up. You have to realize, therefore, you have to reckon with the opinion of Achashverosh, the opinion of Haman. At least in regard to, let's say, okay, religion, you can have your religion. But as far as optional things, right? How you put on your shoes, how you walk down the street, right? Once in a while, you bow down to Haman. It's a big thing. Once a week, you bow down to Haman. Except for that, you can do what you want to. Nimsa comes out, to do the will of each and every person, like Mordechai and Haman. This is really a big contradiction. When a Jew is found in this world, and in the world, in the time of exile, like it says now, we are the servants of Achashverosh, and in the world, there is limitations because of how the world goes, public pressure, peer pressure, the world, the laws of the country. And it even says more, Dina de Malchuta Dina. The laws of a country you should follow. Hagbalus Minagia Medina. Right? You live in England, you drive on the left side of the road. You live in America, you drive on the right side of the road. You can't say, I'm a Jew, I'm going to do whatever I want, I'm going to drive in the middle of the road. You can't do that. But if the laws of the country are not a contradiction to Torah and commandments, you have to do them. That you must act in a certain way according to the Torah, that you have to do it a certain way. You're in France, you have to speak French. Speak French to people, right? There's some countries where you have to shake forbidden to shake somebody's hand. You do shake somebody's hand. You did. Then you might think that if I'm living in America and I have to drive on the right side of the road, and if I'm going to a business meeting, I have to wear a certain type of a suit and a certain type of a hat and certain type of shoes. That's the country. That's the way people do things, right? And I have to know at least a little bit about, the baseball game that was yesterday, and something, a little bit, the Yankees won, the who knows won, something to be aware of. So I have to live in the country. So therefore, you might think, Shari Ratzon Mordechai, therefore you might think that Mordechai, that he doesn't bow down, that you might think this is outside of serving of Hashem, if this Sholel Lorak at Kiyum Ratzon Haman, the Paul, therefore to act like Haman, and to act like Mordechai, that you're not going to bow down at all, you might think that this is not just going against Haman, the evil Haman, but this is also at call a gisha shetzorich litrashev b'minhagei shel olam. You might think that this is going against the whole entire world. On the other hand, if you think that God sent the Jewish people into exile, therefore we should do like Haman said. So, meduda kafin minhag shalom, you have to act according to the ways of the country. Nevertheless, okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to take into account what the country says. Maybe we can take a simple example. Shaving your beard. Religious Jews shaving your beard. There is no place in the Torah, there's no place in Kabbalah, no place anywhere that says that shaving your beard helps you to serve God. Only one example. It says that if you happen to be working in the palace of the king and you have to have a shaved face in order to do that, they won't let you in. Okay, then you can go in. Very extreme, extenuating circumstances that you're allowed to take off a beard. But here we see the Jews take off the beard. Why? To look nice. What are you looking nice for? Who? Who are you looking nice for? What? You don't want to stick out. Come on, look this with the beard. It's not going to be nice. It says, okay, so if so, what it means that you're doing something which you're trying to find a permission. You're finding a permission from the Torah, but you're bending the Torah. Everyone agrees that to cut off your beard does not help you to serve God, but it helps you to get along in the country. So he says, oh, this is bordering on idolatry. Why idolatry? Come on, let's be real. There were very great Jews that didn't have beards. He says, yeah, why didn't they have beards? Because they wanted to be something like the people. There's no, according to Kabbalah, you should take off your beard. There's no such thing. No such thing. Because you're affected by the country. That's the point. Says the Rebbe, I'm going to tell you now that it's possible to live in the country and to go according to the customs of the country and not to be affected by the country. You can be like Mordechai. You can be like Mordechai and like Haman. Haman says you have to pay attention to the country, and Mordechai says you should not pay attention to the country. I'm going to show you how it's possible. Says the Rebbe, this is the whole novelty. When you're attached to God, how God is above any sort of natural forces, you can join these two things together. As you are in the world and in exile, you can be in the world, you can drive on the proper side of the street, you can dress like the non-Jews do, as long as it doesn't oppose the Torah. You can go according to the customs of the country and speak French or Swahili or whatever language you speak. But nevertheless, you're totally above the whole thing. You do not go against the Torah, not even the slightest movement. Maybe I can give you a small example, and then we'll talk about this tomorrow. My wife is a very good example. My wife is a businesswoman. She was a business. My wife has this talent to be a businesswoman. She had the biggest advertising agency, religious advertising agency for the religious agent in Israel. There was like 30 people working there. It was very successful. Very successful. Okay, anyway. So a lot of times she met up with these very important, in Israel, important people. She met up with the prime minister, with this people. And so, of course, the custom was, and especially like rich people, sometimes rich people, so they would stick out their hand to shake hands with them. And she wouldn't shake hands. A woman is not supposed to shake hands with a man. And she would say, I'm sorry, but I'm religious, and a religious person doesn't shake hands. There was one time when she was, I don't want to say any names, I'm trying to be careful about this, but there was once a religious Jew, Israeli, and he was he was the president of Israel, the what's called the Nasi of Israel. And he was at once a meeting like this, and there was some man and his wife that came, whatever it was, and my wife shook hands with the man's wife, but he didn't shake hands with him, the husband. Didn't shake hands. So I'm sorry, I'm a religious person. And this religious, the president of Israel, he had this look of just total anger. You're in a country, you do what everybody does, shake the guy's hand. No, she wouldn't do it. And she was respected because of it. They respected her. Sometimes you make concessions for the sake of peace and for the kid. It comes out exactly the opposite. They show you're weak. They show you're weak. I mean, that's the example of Israel, right? They're making these concessions for peace and giving away land. And it's just a sign to our enemies that we're weak. We're weak. What are we supposed to do? The world is pressuring us. You have to give in. You have to give in. You have to give in. You have to be like the world, right? You have to be like the world. This is the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, be a Jew. Be like Mordechai. Say, I'm not giving in, and you'll see that everyone will respect you. America, the Rebbe said it a lot of times, America respects people who stand up to them. Stand up to them, they'll respect you. And they never did. The Israeli government never did. Now we'll hope, we'll see. Netanyahu maybe he's going to be strong. But that's this thing that the Israeli government never did. With one exception, maybe two exceptions. When Begin, he bombed the Iraqi plant and the atomic plant, and everybody was against him. And finally, in the end, they admitted that he was right. And the same thing, the 6-Day War. We attacked. Amazing miracle that we attacked. We did it first. But that's what the Rebbe is saying. You can be in the world. You can be part of the world. You can even go according to the customs of the world if they don't go according to the Torah, if they don't go against the Torah. But still, you can be totally attached to God. Everything that you do is only because Hashem wants it, and you're willing to stand against the whole entire world, even against the whole Jewish world, for the sake of the truth. That's the message we can learn from Mordechai, and what we can learn from Yehuda, and what we can take into our day-to-day life. And now let's learn the Yom Yom. Let's do this here.